when the sky opened and the visitors who were never meant to be seen finally returned to Earth. The sky had never looked like this before. It was neither day nor night, but a liquid shimmer of pale green and violet, stretching endlessly above the city of Harrow's edge. People paused in the streets, their faces lifted in awe and terror. No weather pattern could explain this, no scientific chart could account for it. In a small apartment on the 15th floor of an aging building, Dr. Elara Mott sat frozen before her telescope. She had spent her life tracking celestial anomalies, predicting comets, meteor showers, even solar flares. But this was unlike anything she had ever seen. A low hum vibrated through the walls, subtle at first, then growing into a deep resonance that seemed to sync with the heartbeat of every living thing. Her instruments were going haywire, numbers and symbols flashing impossibly fast. Elara pressed her palms to the telescope, willing her eyes to focus. And then, through the haze of shifting colors, she saw them. Shapes, delicate, fluid, almost transparent, moving across the sky as if they were breathing. At first, she thought it was a trick of light, a mirage caused by some atmospheric distortion. But when they coalesced into forms vaguely humanoid, she knew the truth. They were coming back. For thousands of years, humanity had whispered stories about the visitors. Ancient texts, carvings in temples, legends passed down in fragmented oral histories. Every civilization had glimpsed them, every culture had feared them. But no one had seen them in living memory. They had disappeared the moment human curiosity had matured enough to demand answers. Until now. Elara's communicator buzzed violently on the table. It was her colleague, Dr. Koth, calling from the International Observatory in the Alps. Elara. His voice was tight with fear and excitement. You're seeing them too, aren't you? The sky, it's opening. Yes, she whispered, her eyes never leaving the shapes above. They are here. Anne. I think they are aware we're watching. The hum became a resonance inside her skull, a song without words. And then, the first of them descended. Not like a falling object, but as though the air itself had bent to let them through. The city erupted into panic. Sirens wailed, helicopters scrambled, but no human force could match what was unfolding above. The visitors, long believed to be myth or metaphor, now hovered over Harrow's edge like living constellations, their bodies shimmering with an internal light that refracted reality itself. Elara's pulse raced. They're communicating, she murmured. Symbols formed in the air, glowing faintly, arranging themselves into patterns her mind could somehow decipher. It's not a language. It's a memory. They are showing us what we forgot, what we were never meant to remember. Across the city, other witnesses reported the same phenomenon. People who had felt a deep, inexplicable pull toward the sky now fell to their knees. Children, whose eyes always seemed too old for their age, stared upwards with a calm that unnerved their parents. And then the sky split. Not like a tear in cloth, but like a door opening in the very fabric of existence. Light poured through in blinding waves, and with it came the visitors, moving toward the earth as though returning from a place they had always belonged to. Elara felt a sudden connection, a thread weaving through her consciousness into the collective memory of humanity. A voice, not spoken aloud, but inside her mind, whispered, "You are not ready to see us before. But now, the time has come." Outside, the city of Harrow's edge became a living mirror of the sky above. The ground shimmered with the same colors, and every surface reflected impossible patterns, fractals of light that seemed alive. The air tasted of metal and rain, of ozone and something ancient. Somewhere deep in the city, a child laughed, a sound pure enough to make grown men weep. Elara realized the truth in that instant. The visitors were not invaders. They were not monsters. They were keepers of a memory humanity had lost, and their return was not a punishment, but a reckoning. The sky continued to open. And humanity, for the first time in millennia, could not look away. The streets of Harrow's edge were chaos and wonder intertwined. Cars abandoned on the thoroughfares glimmered with the same strange light emanating from the sky, their metallic surfaces reflecting impossible patterns. People ran, screamed, and cried, but some, inexplicably, remained calm. Children, in particular, seemed drawn to the visitors, walking toward the shimmering forms with trust rather than fear. Elara ran down the stairwell of her apartment building, her notebook clutched tightly against her chest. She barely noticed the hum in the air now. It had become a steady rhythm, like a pulse shared with every living thing. The city around her was transforming. Asphalt and concrete flickered with iridescent colors, and the buildings seemed to stretch toward the sky, reaching for the visitors as if trying to touch them. When she finally emerged onto the streets, she saw them clearly, the visitors hovering mere meters above the ground. They were taller than humans, yet their forms were fluid, shifting subtly as if composed of liquid light. Some had what looked like wings, delicate structures that refracted the air into fractals. Others had no discernible features at all, their shapes constantly morphing. They were beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. One of them moved closer to the crowd, gliding without effort. Elara could see now that their surfaces were covered with intricate symbols, patterns that seemed to encode memories and emotions rather than words. As it passed, she felt a surge of understanding, a vision forming unbidden in her mind. A city of light, suspended in space, where beings like this had lived alongside stars, shaping galaxies and observing the evolution of worlds. A memory of Earth, not as humans knew it, but as it was meant to be, a planet of potential, fragile yet radiant. A voice echoed inside her skull again, soft but insistent. You have forgotten. You hid from what you were meant to see. Now you must remember. People around her were reacting in different ways. Some fell to their knees, overcome with a sudden flood of emotions, grief, joy, fear, and love all at once. Others ran, screaming at the visitors to leave, to go back to whatever realm they had come from. But the visitors did not attack. They did not speak. They simply moved among humanity, their presence illuminating truths that had long been buried. Elara's colleague, Dr. Rian Koth, appeared beside her, his face pale but resolute. They are examining us, he said. Not in a hostile way, but learning. Or maybe reminding us of who we are. Elara nodded, though her mind was racing. It's more than that. I feel connected. Like a thread has been pulled tight across time, linking me to them, to Earth, to something we lost long ago. In the distance, a crowd had gathered around a plaza. There, a cluster of visitors hovered, their forms coalescing into shapes that resembled human figures, but not quite. As they moved, the ground beneath them began to shimmer like liquid glass. People stepped forward hesitantly, feeling memories that were not their own. Stories of civilizations that had risen and fallen, of humans who had glimpsed the sky before the visitors vanished, of warnings and promises left behind in ancient texts. One of the visitors extended what could be called an arm, or perhaps it was a projection of light, toward a young boy. The boy did not flinch. Instead, he reached out, and for a brief moment, the light passed through him and imprinted a vision directly into his mind. He saw Earth from above, not as it was now, but as it could be. Cities floating in harmony with nature, oceans sparkling with bioluminescent life, skies alive with uncountable stars. The crowd gasped, some crying, some laughing, unable to comprehend the magnitude of what they were witnessing. Elara realized the deeper truth. The visitors were not here to dominate, not here to destroy. They were here to awaken humanity, to remind the world of a cosmic truth that had been erased. But not everyone could see it that way. Governments, military forces, and religious authorities across the globe were scrambling, trying to contain the phenomenon, calling it an invasion, a threat to human order. Satellites captured images of the visitors, and soon every news network was flooded with reports. Unknown celestial entities descend on Earth. Panic spread, fear of the unknown growing faster than awe. Elara and Rian knew the challenge was not simply surviving the initial encounter, but helping humanity understand that this was not a moment of conquest. It was a moment of reckoning. And the reckoning had already begun. As the sky above Harrow's edge continued to pulse with shifting colors, Elara looked up, meeting the gaze of a visitor whose form seemed to mirror her own. She felt a question form inside her mind, unspoken yet unavoidable. Are you ready to remember what you were never meant to see? Her heartbeat quickened. Somewhere deep in the distance, beyond the horizon and the trembling city, more visitors were arriving, and the world was no longer the same. The world outside Harrow's edge was in chaos. News feeds buzzed with live footage of the shimmering sky and the visitors' descent. Governments convened emergency sessions, militaries mobilized, and yet every attempt at aggression faltered. Weapons aimed at the visitors passed through their luminous forms as if through mist. Drones lost all signal. Satellites flickered with unexplainable interference, and communications became erratic, transmitting strange symbols instead of speech. Elara and Rian were summoned to the Provisional Global Science Council, a hastily organized coalition of the world's leading minds. They were brought to a facility far from the cities, in a valley surrounded by mountains. From there, the sky was still visible, the open expanse above dotted with forms moving in patterns that defied geometry and logic. "We don't understand them," General Turvin admitted, pacing the room. His uniform was crisp, but sweat beaded on his forehead. "We don't know if they are hostile, or if this phenomenon is safe. How do we respond to something that isn't bound by our laws, our physics, our understanding of life?" Elara stepped forward, her hands shaking slightly. "They are not here to fight us. The sky, the patterns, it's not a threat. It's a message. A memory. Humanity has forgotten things we were never meant to see, and they are reminding us." "Reminding us of what?" the general demanded. "That Earth was never just ours," Rian said, his voice calm but urgent. "We've lived under the illusion that we are alone. But these visitors, these keepers of memory, they've watched over life on this planet for millennia. They are not our enemies. They are caretakers, and they've returned because we are finally at the threshold of understanding." Outside, the sky shifted again. The visitors formed geometric shapes, spirals, and lattices of light that pulsed in rhythm with the ground below. People who had remained in the cities reported visions, dreams of civilizations rising and falling, of worlds that could have been, of knowledge lost to time. Elara was drawn into one such vision herself. She saw a continent covered in dense forests, oceans glowing with bioluminescent life, and cities constructed in harmony with the natural world. Human ancestors walked alongside beings like the visitors, learning, observing, creating together. And then, suddenly, the memory fractured. Humanity had grown too curious, too eager to dominate, and the visitors had withdrawn, leaving only traces behind. "They left us because we were not ready," Elara murmured, turning to Rian. "But now we have a choice. We can remember, or we can destroy what little remains of our potential." Meanwhile, a faction of humans had already begun to resist. Militias and extremist groups gathered, armed and determined to fight the invaders. Their leaders preached fear, claiming the visitors were demons, spies, or heralds of an apocalypse. In the streets, panic erupted. Fires burned, and chaos spread beyond Harrow's edge. Yet the visitors moved calmly, almost deliberately, among humanity. They did not attack, but their presence changed the very atmosphere. People who had touched them or their light felt emotions beyond comprehension, empathy for strangers, sudden flashes of knowledge, awareness of the interconnectedness of life on Earth and beyond. In the valley, Elara and Rian witnessed the first direct demonstration of the visitors' abilities. One of the beings extended a stream of light toward a blackboard-sized display of data, and instantly, centuries of lost scientific knowledge appeared. Formulas, energy principles, ecological systems humans had forgotten. It was as if the visitors were offering humanity a second chance. But there was a warning hidden in the gift. Alongside the knowledge came visions of consequences: cities destroyed by greed, forests decimated by ignorance, oceans poisoned by apathy. The message was clear: humanity could either rise to this new understanding or fall into oblivion. Elara turned to the general. "This is the choice we must make. Not just to survive, but to evolve." He hesitated, staring at the display, the light from the valley reflecting in his eyes. "And if we fail?" "They will leave," Rian said quietly. "Again. And perhaps this time, we will have no one to guide us back." The sky pulsed brighter, and the visitors began to form a single, immense shape, a spiral of light stretching from horizon to horizon, as if opening a door into another dimension. It was an invitation, a bridge to knowledge, to memory, to a world humanity had never been ready to see, until now. And then, across the globe, people began to hear whispers, not through sound, but in the depths of their minds. Whispers of the past, of forgotten truths, of the visitors' watchful presence over Earth for thousands of years. Those who listened carefully began to understand. The sky had opened, not to threaten, but to awaken. By the third day of the sky's opening, the world had changed irrevocably. Harrow's Edge, once a city of ordinary streets and familiar routines, had become a nexus of strange light and shifting reality. The visitors moved gracefully among the crowds, their presence igniting both fear and wonder. Some humans fell to worship, others to despair, and yet a growing number began to see the truth beyond mere appearances. The visitors were not conquerors, they were mirrors of what humanity had forgotten. Elara and Rian worked tirelessly, documenting the phenomena. They discovered that direct contact with the visitors triggered visions, Memories not of one's personal life, but of collective histories. People relived the rise and fall of civilizations, both human and pre-human, civilizations that had coexisted with the visitors before vanishing from history. Every vision carried a lesson. Greed, hubris, and ignorance had always led to collapse. Only balance and understanding could sustain life. In a small plaza, a group of children approached one of the visitors. Unlike adults, who often reacted with fear or skepticism, the children moved freely, unafraid. One child, a girl named Lyra, stepped forward and touched the shimmer of the visitor's form. Light streamed through her body, and she collapsed, not in pain, but in a trance. Through her eyes, the crowd saw visions of Earth's distant past, lush forests stretching beyond imagination, oceans glowing with life, and skies alive with impossible constellations. They saw humans walking among beings like the visitors, learning the secrets of stars, of time, of energy itself. The visions ended with a warning. Humanity had turned away once before, rejecting the knowledge offered, and had nearly destroyed itself. Lyra opened her eyes, calm and radiant, her pupils reflecting galaxies. They want us to remember, she whispered. Not just see, but understand. We can learn again. We have a chance. But not everyone was ready to understand. Across the world, governments and extremist factions were escalating their response. Armies mobilized, weapons readied, and warnings were broadcasted to civilians: do not approach the visitors. They are not human. They are dangerous. Fear spread like wildfire, infecting minds even in places untouched by the phenomenon. Elara and Rianne knew that if humanity was to survive this encounter, understanding alone was not enough. They had to act as intermediaries. They organized small groups of volunteers willing to meet the visitors directly. These volunteers were scientists, artists, spiritual leaders, and even skeptics, chosen not for bravery but for openness. The visitors responded to the openness of these humans, forming bridges of light and knowledge. Within the beams, concepts of physics and energy unfolded visually, revealing principles humans had yet to grasp. Time itself seemed fluid, flowing backward and forward, showing consequences of choices not yet made. But the visitors did not speak in words. They communicated through memory and perception, leaving interpretation to humans. For some, this was enlightenment. For others, madness. In the valleys, forests, and oceans of the world, people reported hearing whispers in their minds, fragments of languages long forgotten, equations beyond comprehension, songs of stars. Humanity was awakening, and yet trembling. Meanwhile, military forces continued to act on fear. One rogue unit in Europe fired on a cluster of visitors attempting to land near a city. The weapons had no effect, and the resulting explosion fractured reality briefly. Buildings warped, shadows twisted unnaturally, and some soldiers were trapped in visions of ancient worlds for hours. Those who survived returned changed, silent, haunted, and aware of knowledge they could barely comprehend. Elara realized that humanity's greatest threat was not the visitors, but themselves. Fear was a contagion, spreading faster than understanding. The visitors offered tools, knowledge, and vision, but they could not enforce comprehension or restraint. That responsibility lay with humans. In the skies above Harrow's edge, the largest visitor yet formed. A spiral so vast that it spanned miles, glowing with a soft white light that radiated warmth rather than heat. It extended an invisible invitation, an open doorway not of matter, but of consciousness. Rianne, observing from the valley, turned to Elara. This is a test, he said. They are not giving answers yet. They are asking us whether we are ready to choose our future or repeat the mistakes of the past. Elara nodded, understanding. And the sky, it will not wait forever. As night fell, the city glowed with an ethereal light. People gathered in silent awe, some praying, some learning, some fearing. And above them, the visitors waited, patient and eternal, watching humanity stand at the threshold of memory. The question hung in the air, heavier than the shimmer of the sky. Would humans rise to remember, or would they turn away, leaving the visitors once again to vanish into the stars, taking the knowledge of what Earth could be with them? The world had reached a fragile precipice. Cities across the globe shimmered with iridescent light as the visitors expanded their presence. Those who had opened themselves to understanding began to form small communities, safe havens where humans could learn from the visitors, share visions, and begin to remember the knowledge humanity had long lost. But fear and resistance had not vanished. Military forces, religious zealots, and militant groups hardened their stance. They declared the visitors enemies of humanity, claiming that surrendering to their influence would destroy human autonomy. Nations attempted blockades, no-fly zones, and communication blackouts, but the visitors' presence transcended such measures. Wherever light touched, human perception shifted. Reality itself became a teacher, bending, revealing, and testing the limits of comprehension. In Harrow's Edge, Elara and Rian stood on a hill overlooking the city. The largest visitor spiraled above them, casting a soft, pulsating glow. People below walked calmly among the smaller visitors, some in awe, some terrified. The air hummed with resonance, a symphony of thought and memory that connected every living being. "They are giving us the choice," Rian said quietly. "Not forcing it, not demanding it. They want to see if we are ready to evolve, or doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past." Elara nodded, her mind heavy with the weight of responsibility. "But time is short. The world cannot wait for everyone to understand. Some will cling to fear, and others will rise to meet the truth." The first major confrontation erupted near the coastlines of Asia, where a coalition of military and extremist forces attempted to fire upon a cluster of visitors approaching a major city. The resulting clash was catastrophic, not because of violence, but because of perception. Those involved were engulfed by visions, towering forests of another age, oceans alive with creatures that defied human taxonomy, and cities of light floating among the stars. Some soldiers returned as changed men and women. Others went mad, unable to reconcile what they had seen with their training and beliefs. News footage captured fragments of these visions, sending waves of fear and awe across the globe. Elara and Rian worked to reach the affected regions. Traveling in a convoy of volunteers, they carried instruments to record the visitors' influence, hoping to create a bridge of understanding between the fearful and the enlightened. Along the way, they encountered pockets of resistance, people who refused to acknowledge anything beyond their own beliefs. Elara attempted to communicate, using light, symbols, and shared visions. Some accepted her message, others rejected it violently, driven by terror of the unknown. In the skies above Harrow's Edge, the spiral of light formed by the largest visitor grew even more intricate. Within it, patterns shifted like galaxies in motion, revealing glimpses of Earth's potential futures, cities that harmonized with nature, technology guided by understanding rather than exploitation, and humans exploring the stars not as conquerors, but as stewards. Then, the message became explicit. Every mind open to perception heard it clearly, a voice not spoken aloud but felt in the very core of consciousness. "The choice is yours. Remember what you have forgotten, or remain blind. The visitors will not intervene beyond this point. You must decide." Elara felt a sudden surge of clarity. The visitors were offering humanity a second chance, a chance to rise, to reclaim knowledge and wisdom lost to arrogance and fear. But it required unity, trust, and the courage to embrace what had been hidden. Across the globe, humans were making that choice in countless small moments. A scientist teaching a child the principles of light and energy, a farmer learning to work with natural cycles rather than dominate them, a soldier lowering their weapon in awe of a vision of the stars. Each act of understanding sent ripples through the consciousness of the world, linking humans to one another and to the visitors. But resistance still remained, stubborn and angry, unwilling to surrender control. Elara realized that humanity's evolution would not be universal, not all would be ready to remember. Some would fall away, consumed by fear and ignorance. Yet even amidst this, a new hope emerged. A critical mass of humans was beginning to awaken, to grasp the vast possibilities of life on Earth and beyond. In Harrow's Edge, as night fell, the sky shimmered with impossible colors. The largest visitor reached a crescendo, its spiral of light stretching to the edges of perception. People gathered, knees bent, hearts open. And then, for the first time, the spiral pulsed with a direct connection to human consciousness, offering a glimpse of the Earth not as it was, but as it could be, alive, radiant, and limitless in potential. Elara took a deep breath. "This is it," she whispered to Rian. "We can either step through and remember, or turn away and lose it forever." The air hummed with anticipation. Across the planet, humanity held its collective breath. The visitors waited patiently, their forms shimmering like liquid stars, reflecting the hope and fear of every human below. And then, the first choice was made. A child reached toward the light. A soldier lowered his weapon. A scientist began to teach. The threshold had been crossed, and the world began to awaken. The world had changed. Cities shimmered with iridescent light. Forests, rivers, and oceans reflected patterns that mirrored the sky. Humanity stood at the threshold, caught between awe and terror, between remembering and forgetting. Every conscious mind felt it. The visitors were no longer distant observers, they were catalysts, mirrors of potential and consequence. In Harrow's edge, the largest spiral of light above the city pulsed rhythmically, sending waves of perception across the globe. Humans who had embraced understanding experienced a symphony of memories, visions of civilizations long erased, and knowledge that had been buried for millennia. They saw the Earth as it had been before humans had begun to forget, and as it could become if humanity chose wisely. Elara and Rianne led a gathering of the awakened, guiding them through visions that challenged every preconception. "These are not just memories," Elara explained, her voice trembling with urgency. "They are warnings, teachings, and invitations. We were never meant to see them fully, not until we were ready. Now, the visitors are offering a chance to reclaim it all." Meanwhile, the forces of fear persisted. Militias, governments, and extremists refused to yield. Some attempted violent confrontation, firing weapons at the visitors or trying to disperse gatherings of enlightened humans. But the visitors were not bound by human physics. Bullets passed through them, vehicles twisted into impossible shapes, and those who confronted them unwillingly were thrown into visions that spanned centuries of cosmic history. Many returned in shock, minds stretched beyond recognition. Others never returned at all, lost in the folds of memory and potential. In the midst of this chaos, a revelation came through the spiral of light. Humanity saw why the visitors had left originally. Long ago, humans had reached a point of curiosity and ambition that could have led to catastrophe. They were not yet ready to coexist with the visitors' knowledge. Greed and fear would have corrupted it, leading to destruction across Earth and beyond. So the visitors withdrew, leaving only fragments of memory in myths, texts, and symbols, waiting for a time when humans could face the truth with humility and openness. "And now," Rianne whispered, staring at the immense spiral. "Now, we are being tested," Elara said. "Not for survival, but for readiness. To see if humanity can learn from what we were never meant to see, and rise above what we have been." Across the globe, moments of choice multiplied. Soldiers lowered weapons. Children laughed with understanding beyond their years. Scientists shared visions with farmers, engineers taught artists, and strangers comforted each other in empathy that transcended language. The visitors mirrored this awakening, their forms expanding and intertwining, sending pulses of light that strengthened human consciousness rather than imposing control. Yet, resistance was stubborn. Groups who clung to fear tried to sever connections between humans and visitors. They attacked communities, spread misinformation, and attempted to rally the world against the alien threat. But the visitors' presence could not be destroyed by human hands. Fear began to falter under the weight of understanding. Those who opened themselves, even partially, felt the threads of memory linking them to all life, past, present, and potential. In Harrow's edge, a young girl named Lyra, now fully awakened to the visitors' knowledge, stepped into the central spiral of light. She became a living conduit, transmitting visions and memories to humans nearby. Her voice carried through minds without sound. "You are not alone. You were never alone. Earth, stars, life itself, this is all connected. Remember, and step forward." Elara felt the truth in Lyra's words. The visitors' return was not merely an event, it was a reckoning. Humanity had to confront its fears, embrace the knowledge it had long buried, and reclaim its potential. Every hesitation, every act of fear, delayed this awakening. Every act of trust and openness accelerated it. The spiral of light pulsed again, brighter and stronger. Those aligned with understanding were bathed in brilliance, their minds expanded, linking consciousness across the globe. Humanity's collective memory began to reconstruct itself, not just as knowledge, but as awareness, an understanding of the interconnectedness of life, time, and the universe. And then came the moment of ultimate choice. The largest visitor, at the center of the spiral, reached out, not as a threat, but as a hand of invitation. "Step forward," the thought resonated across minds. "Step forward into remembrance, into understanding, into evolution. Or turn away, and forget what has been offered forever." Elara felt the weight of the world in that moment. Every human had to choose, consciously or unconsciously. The sky above reflected the answer, shimmering and pulsing in response to humanity's collective will. Those who chose to remember glowed faintly, their consciousness intertwining with the visitors. Those who resisted remained in shadow, separated but still part of the world, watching the awakening with fear or regret. And as the spiral reached its zenith, the first step of humanity's transformation unfolded, not imposed by the visitors, but embraced willingly. Earth had begun to remember. The sky above Earth had become a living mosaic of light, color, and memory. Every shimmer, every pulse of the visitors' forms, resonated with the minds of those who had opened themselves to understanding. Humanity was no longer fragmented by ignorance. Across the globe, people began to perceive the threads connecting life, memory, and potential, forming a shared consciousness that stretched beyond cities, borders, and oceans. In Harrow's edge, Elara stood at the center of the largest spiral, surrounded by humans whose eyes reflected stars. They were volunteers, children, scientists, and visionaries, all who had embraced the visitor's gift. Lyra, the girl who had become a conduit of memory, guided the influx of visions, her small form glowing with cosmic light. Every mind touched by the spiral could feel the ancient knowledge of civilizations past, the wisdom of the visitors, and the possible futures of Earth. Rian watched in awe. "It's like the planet itself is breathing through them," he murmured. "All life, all time, all memory, it's flowing into us." Elara nodded, sensing the truth in his words. Humanity had begun to evolve, not biologically, but mentally and spiritually. Knowledge once lost to greed, fear, or forgetfulness returned, not as facts to memorize, but as understanding to live by. Elsewhere, resistance persisted. Militias and extremists continued to challenge the visitors, firing weapons, spreading propaganda, and attempting to disrupt the awakened communities. But the visitors did not respond with violence. Instead, the resistant individuals were enveloped in visions, often overwhelming, showing both the beauty and fragility of existence. Some broke under the weight of comprehension, retreating into isolation or despair. Others, however, slowly accepted the reality of what they were seeing, taking tentative steps toward understanding. Elara moved among the crowd, guiding those hesitant to open themselves fully. "You don't have to understand everything at once," she said gently. "You only need to open your mind to possibility. Trust what you feel, and the rest will follow." The spiral above them grew denser and brighter, radiating waves that reached every continent. Oceans shimmered, forests pulsed with new life, and deserts bloomed faintly as the resonance spread. Earth itself seemed to respond to the visitors' presence and humanity's awakening. The world was becoming more than a planet. It was becoming a conscious entity, a living repository of memory, knowledge, and potential. Then, the visitors revealed their purpose fully. Their forms aligned, creating a constellation of light that stretched from pole to pole. Every human who had opened themselves could perceive the message. "We are not rulers, nor gods. We are keepers. We watch, we guide, we wait. Your species nearly destroyed the chance to coexist with what we represent. Now, you are ready. Remember, create, protect, and choose your future wisely." Elara felt the weight of that responsibility settle on humanity's collective mind. The visitors were offering not salvation, but empowerment. Humans could now steer their evolution consciously, building societies in harmony with Earth, exploring the stars, and nurturing life in ways that had once been forbidden by ignorance and fear. In Harrow's edge, a small group of former skeptics approached the spiral cautiously. One man, a soldier who had fired at the visitors days earlier, knelt before the light. For the first time, he truly saw, not with his eyes, but with his mind and heart. Tears streamed down his face as he understood the enormity of what humanity had been offered. Others followed, hesitant but willing, joining the awakened in a growing wave of comprehension. Across the globe, cities, villages, and remote settlements experienced similar awakenings. The resistant minority began to dwindle, not through coercion, but through exposure to truth. The world was shifting from fear-driven survival to conscious evolution. And then, as the spiral reached its zenith, the visitors began to recede, not disappearing, but folding into the sky in a manner that suggested patience and continuity. They left behind a resonance, a living memory encoded into the very planet, accessible to any human who chose to open their mind. The sky returned to a familiar blue, but faint glimmers of their presence remained, like stars glimpsed in daylight, reminding humanity that the visitors were always watching, always guiding, and that the choice to remember had been made. Elara turned to Rian. "They are leaving, but not gone. They are part of us now." Yes, Rianne replied.
And we're part of them.
Earth will never be the same, and neither will we. We've been given a second chance. Lyra looked up at the sky, her eyes reflecting galaxies.
We remember now. We can create something better, together.
And for the first time in millennia, humanity truly saw itself, and its place in the cosmos, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as caretakers, students, and partners in a universe that had always been waiting. The sky had returned to its familiar blue, yet it shimmered faintly with the memory of light that had passed through it. The visitor's presence, once overwhelming and radiant, now lingered subtly, like a quiet heartbeat within the planet itself. Their purpose was fulfilled. Humanity had chosen to remember. In Harrow's edge, the city had transformed. Buildings glowed faintly with iridescent patterns, streets pulsed softly with the energy of connected consciousness, and the air carried the resonance of understanding. People walked differently now, with awareness, empathy, and a sense of unity. Children ran freely, their eyes reflecting galaxies, their laughter a reminder that this was only the beginning. Elara and Rianne stood atop a hill overlooking the city. It feels alive, Rianne said softly. Not just the city, but the world. The visitors have left more than memories, they've left potential, woven into everything. Elara nodded, her gaze on the horizon where faint glimmers of light traced the path the visitors had taken. We've been given a chance to rise, not as conquerors, but as caretakers. To remember what we were never meant to see and act on it. Lyra approached them, her small form glowing softly.
I can feel it, she said.
The visitors are still here, in the memory of the planet, in us. It's like a song we can all hear if we choose to listen. Across the globe, humanity's response was equally profound. Cities coordinated with natural ecosystems rather than dominating them. Rivers, forests, and oceans began subtle recoveries as humans applied knowledge previously lost. Energy flowed in harmony with the planet's natural systems. Science, art, and spirituality converged in ways never seen before. Societies were still imperfect, and fear had not vanished completely, but understanding had taken root in the hearts of billions. Resistance had not disappeared entirely. Some chose to reject the visitors' gifts, clinging to fear, tradition, or skepticism. Yet even they could not deny the transformations around them. Many slowly integrated, unwillingly at first, then willingly, drawn by the tangible resonance of knowledge, memory, and interconnectedness. Elara walked through the streets of Harrow's edge, witnessing human compassion at work. A scientist guided a child in understanding the principles of energy. Former soldiers helped rebuild a collapsed neighborhood using knowledge of material physics previously lost. Communities gathered to share visions, dreams, and ideas, forming a collective consciousness that reflected the visitors' teachings without losing individuality.
Rianne turned to her.
Do you think they'll ever return?
Elara smiled faintly. Perhaps not as they did before. But they don't have to.
They've given us the tools, and the memory. That's enough. We carry them now, in every choice we make. Above them, the sky shimmered one last time, faint traces of the spiral and patterns that had transformed human consciousness flickering like distant stars. Then, slowly, the shimmer faded into the familiar night sky. Yet the world felt different. Humanity had been awakened, connected, and reminded of its cosmic potential. In the quiet of the evening, Lyra looked up at the stars. We can do it, she said softly.
We can live like they wanted us to.
Together, remembering. Elara took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, the hum of memory in the air. Yes, she said. We will. We must. This is only the beginning. And as humanity slept under a sky that seemed both ordinary and extraordinary, the resonance of the visitors remained, a quiet, eternal song of memory, guidance, and possibility. Earth had been given a second chance, and for the first time in millennia, humans could truly see themselves not just as inhabitants of the world, but as caretakers of its infinite potential. The sky had opened, the visitors had returned, and humanity remembered. And in that remembering, the world began anew.